I did an early vote in the referendum and I voted no, and these are the reasons why. I don't believe these are stupid and I don't believe these are racist. Number one, everyone seems to be saying we've got to close the gap. And in principle, that's fine. I don't know anyone that says, hey, make the gap wider, right? No one's saying that and leave the gap as it is. But by what right are we going to intervene in anyone else's life and say, we're unhappy with the outcomes that someone that looks like you has? So now the government people or whoever it is, a non-for-profit organization, is going to come in. We're going to forcibly change the way people eat. We're going to forcibly change how many hours sleep they get. We're going to make them go to the hospital more often. If they don't want to take the medication or get the vaccine, are we going to make them? If their kids aren't doing enough hours homework, or if they're not studying the right subjects at school, or if they've just made the decision to not go to university, what are we going to do? Hit them with a stick, or like take their money away from them, or threaten them with prison time or something? Honestly, really, how are we going to change outcomes in a group of people? Now, we're saying that the particular group of people whose outcomes aren't where we want them to be, or education levels aren't where we want them to be. I mean, I'm already out at this point in time. Like, this sounds terrible. But we're saying that you know those people when you see them. Why? Skin color. That's honestly what we're saying. We're saying that there's a group of people, and it's not they're a certain religion, and it's not people with or without university degrees, or people who have or haven't been divorced. It's people of a certain race, don't have a certain outcome of life expectancy or health or education or whatever it is. Thus, government intervention is required. I mean, I accept that Kathy Freeman, who I love to death, has come out in support of yes, but is she really prepared for someone to knock on her door and say, your life requires inspection by some government auditor to bring about outcomes that someone somewhere who may have just wanted power or money or something requires you to be? Are you eating that? Are you drinking that? What hour sleep are you getting? These things must change now. Now, I'm already out on that. I mean, and that seems a person in good faith doing that has to take responsibility for the fact that when you said you have to get a uni degree and then that lady regrets not having kids when she was younger, you have to take responsibility for that. But obviously, as soon as you say, oh, we have a power in this country to change people's lives, to change people's expectations, change people's educations, the worst of people, all the new Hitlers are going to go, Eureka, and they're going to go and get that job and they're going to do it in bad faith. So, number one, by what right do we change a person's life? And especially when we're classifying the people that require changing based on race. I'm sure this is going to age bad. Not this video, but like the referendum thing. I'm sure this is going to age badly. And in 5 years, we're going to look back and go, God, thank God no one. I had a mate when I was at school whose father was some religion, I don't understand which it was, and he refused a blood transfusion. And he had an appendectomy, appendicitis. Simplest thing, the doctors could have had it done in half a day and he survived, but he refused a blood transfusion and died. And my mate got raised by, his mum remarried and raised by this douchebag who wasn't a very good father, as I understand it. And I still, in principle, don't think that the doctors should have given him a blood transfusion, the guy when he was under surgery for the appendectomy. If he made that choice, if he said, God doesn't love me if I don't if I get a blood transfusion or something, oh, that's his choice then, and I guess he's dead. But we all get to make our choice, and that is essentially what human rights are. You have to treat me as an end in and of myself, and even if my choice is, to me, a stupid ass choice, I made it, let me live with it. If someone's living in really remote areas, or someone's dropping out of high school, or someone's living one way and not another, they get to make it, man. Consider the Amish people in America, right? I mean, they must have different life expect or different education outcomes, but if that's how they want to live. Then the Mennonites and the Seventh Day Adventists and the Amish people and whoever they are, they can live the way they want to live. And if the Aborigines are living differently, they're living differently. Number two, is government intervention even possible? Where's one time in your life when the government's knocked on your door and come in with money or power or something like that, and then at the end of the day, suddenly you're 5 IQ points higher, or suddenly you've lost 10 kilos and put on 3 kilos of muscle or something? It's not happened to me ever. And I don't think this is possible. The big things that control my life are like the hours of sleep I get, what I eat, how many kids I chose to have, the woman I chose to marry, the university degree I got, whether I went into small business or didn't, how many holidays I take, the amount of alcohol I consume, all these things. Government's got nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. And like they've been raising the prices of cigarettes forever. There's still cigarette butts all on the ground out there at the front of my place. What is it that the government really does? If the government can just go like tingle, 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 and then everything changes, why do we have people in prison? I'm not sure that this is even possible, but I'm sure the government can make things a lot worse. We've seen that. Go get a history book called The Worst Parts of History. That's either a major organized religion or a government or something intervening because they find one group of people needs special attention, right? if you go to uni and do a work uni degree, which believe it or not, I did, they'll talk about this thing called the Stanford prison experiment, in which you take one group of people and give them special attention, and that group of people always gets persecuted. At least it was a small experiment done once, and then they had to stop it halfway through. But nevertheless, the woke crowd, they talk about the Stanford prison experiment all the time. Isn't this one? I'm not sure the government even can intervene for the better, even if we all voted yes and we really try to make this happen. I mean, if we could have, we would have. I think it's more likely that the government can provide an endless salary to 100 people who make $300,000 a year, and therefore they are incentivized to never say, hey, we should disband this whole shit so we are unemployed and have to go and get a real job. I'm not sure this can work. And I'm not sure, like in the first point, by what right we should intervene in someone's life, even if they ask for it. I mean, if the rest of us all went and tried to get educated, but the person didn't, and then they said, I should be educated, well, you had your chance and you can go and do what everyone else did. I'm reasonably educated. I hated it. I had to move to the city. I'm from the country originally. I had to do it at nights. I had to work full time during the day, but I got myself there. I didn't ever ask for anything. I'm not sure why that isn't possible, why that isn't open to all Australians already. It's the third reason. When I was getting my uni degree, I did a unit called Introductory Law, and we went over the Constitution. And the reason why Australia is such a great country and will last forever and is better than everyone else, is better than America anyway, in my opinion, legally. Our foundational documents never try to philosophize or moralize about what's right and wrong, right? The Americans' foundational documents are like, we behold these truths to be self-evident and one nation under God and all men are equal and all this sort of stuff, right? We don't do that. You come out your mum, you're free. That's how freedom is. You're born, it's a beautiful baby boy or girl. There you go, missus. That's what freedom is. And we don't try to say it's Christian freedom or Muslim freedom or it's a Rousseauian version of freedom or a Hobbes or a Locke, or we don't go anywhere near any of that. We just say you're free. And then we go, murder's wrong, theft is wrong, and a few other things. And once that very short list, hopefully, of things that are wrong, you can do what you want. And that means all immigration works really well here. And that means that we don't have a sort of people that try and control everyone else with our legal documents. And that means that the lawyers don't get control of us all. And that means I don't sit here and think, I got to wait for the Supreme or in Australia, High Court to make a decision so I can work out what's right and wrong or not. I get to meet with my friends and I get to discuss in my community what's right and wrong. And I don't have to bring a politician or a lawyer or change the Constitution or anything like that. I think the Constitution should stay a bland and sterile document that no one really gives a fuck about. And it's just a shopping list of things that tell you how the upper house, the lower house is made. It's extremely suspect to me that we're trying to put this thing in the Constitution. It's almost like bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on this immediately. Who would do this? Just legislate it. It's so much easier. Why would this thing hang around forever? Why would you bother going door to door in the whole country, from the top of Queensland to the bottom of Tasmania, from Western Australia through to Byron Bay? You've got to go to everyone, knock on everyone's door and say, everyone in their registered vote, you must come out on a Saturday and you must moralize with the country and you must open yourself up to some political bullshit because you said the wrong thing to the wrong crowd. You must risk getting cancelled, which I suppose I am right now. Who would do that? You just legislate this. It's super weird that this is going in the Constitution. It doesn't need to be there, and we don't have that sort of Constitution to start with. And Anthony Albanese would know this. Fourthly, I am absolutely certain that this will turn into a lobby group. Anything that has power will be corrupted. Even if the people that are going to meet at that cafe across the road there, whoever's going to be at that cafe tomorrow at 9:30 a.m., whoever was in that cafe at that point in time, if we granted them the special power that they would get to call the Prime Minister or the King of England or the President of the United States of America or whoever it is and be able to speak to them for 5 minutes, and the Prime Minister or the President had to listen, I guarantee you at 9:30 tomorrow morning, the worst people would be over there. The people that want us all with barcodes in our foreheads or want us all forcibly sterilized or something. They can't win normally. They can't get the Prime Minister's ear normally by just saying something simple like, hey, if someone wants to get divorced because they're in an abusive relationship, they should be able to. Or if someone wants to go to school, they should be able to, free, or these are the things that are true in my country. Those things you don't need a voice to parliament, or you don't need some special thing, because those are just good ideas. But if you said, the good idea isn't making itself understood on its own, we're going to force the Prime Minister to listen, I guarantee you the worst people will be over there because they've tried to make their point and it hasn't been made because their idea is terrible. So they go looking for the things where the Prime Minister has to listen to them. I'm sure the people that want to be on The Voice, if it gets through, are decent people, and I'm sure they're going to try and help. And pending number one and number two of my arguments here, they might succeed in doing it. But I guarantee you, the people in this country that think I need to corrupt the government or change the government, I would say corrupt, they will get on that thing. That's their whole point. That's what they want to do, is to find power and get on it. And when you've got these really remote areas in Australia where the people out there may or may not have university degrees and certainly may or may not know about good corporate governance, mining elites, mining money will infiltrate them like that. The sort of SJW activist crowd protesting and cancelling and stuff, they'll get on those boards and they'll stack these groups will be stacked with the wrong sorts of people who lust after power, who want to control our lives. And that's who will really be making representations. And the average, extremely working class Aborigine in a very remote area won't be able to go toe to toe with them and they'll get forced off. These things will become lobby groups in a heartbeat. And finally, I just believe that this is an inaccurate attempt to diagnose the problem. The problem, I don't think, is racial. It might be cultural, but then it goes back to my first point. By what right do we change a culture? How do we find, I don't know what I can say here, which is not being called a racist, but one particular, Americans have too many guns, right? If it's not our job to go over there and tell the Americans not to have guns. If that's what they want to do and shoot their kids, and the kids have to wear the Kevlar backpack and with a lunchbox in it, but it also saves them from getting shot in a school shooting, I don't know how I change that for them. If we've got a culture in this country that lives one way or another, I don't know by what right. I mean, can't they just change anyway? But I think the problem is not cultural or racial. The problem is geographic. Everyone in very remote areas. So there's cities, big towns, remote areas. That's where I'm from. Very remote areas. Now, of the whole country, 0.8% of people live in very remote areas. These are like cattle stations and campsites and things like that. Like hardly anyone lives there. But 30% of people that live there are Indigenous. It's the white people who have bad problems in very remote areas. It's because if you have an appendectomy, nice piece of symmetry, it takes you 6 hours to get to a hospital, you know? Like I get an appendicitis right now, there's a hospital down there across, you know, I can walk there, hop maybe. But you in that area, I mean, you get the Royal Flying Doctor out or you're dead. Everyone out there's got educational problems. Everyone out there finds it hard to get a job. You're either a station hand or you're nothing, right? There's no other job out there. The problem is very remote areas. And when Jacinta Price gave her speech that everyone loves so much, she made the point that if you say, go out to the back of Northern Territory and fix the problem with Aborigines, the person whose job that is necessarily racist and necessarily breaching some part of the Human Rights Commission's acts that they have in the world by saying, all right, the problem with one race of people is this and this. You can't say that. And you can't, I agree, you can't. One shouldn't say that. That is where racism comes from. The problem is but if you empower a person to say, everyone that lives south of Darwin and north of Alice Springs, it doesn't matter their skin color, it doesn't matter their age, it doesn't matter their gender, help them all. Well, that frees everyone up to then, oh, thank God I can actually do that without it being illegal. I can help. And she made the point that she sat on committees where she said, why hasn't action been done? And she's seen awkward white males like bumble and stumble trying not to say racist. And none of the policies can work because you can't use certain words. But if you free everyone up to say, just provide additional support to people in very remote areas and be silent on race, be silent on gender, be silent on age or whether they're immigrated to Australia or refugees and any other thing, then you can actually free the systems up to help them. And the voice won't do that. And lastly, hell, we can do all this anyway. What do you need to pass something through the Constitution for? Like, you can get a Twitter list with like Indigenous voices on it. You can have like 10 employees go out and travel around the country and report back what they find. Like, how do we find out what disabled people want? How do we find out, I don't know, what women want or what people who have returned from war want? Or how do we find out what refugees want? I mean, we ask them. We don't need to change the Constitution every time. The Aborigines live here. If you think they want something special, go and ask them. And you might find out as they're being asked, you know, they might say, you know what, I don't want special treatment because of what I was, nah, please don't. This is patently absurd to suggest that the only thing that we can do to find out what a certain subsection of the population want, whilst we're finding out what subsection of the populations want and have done for 100 years, is for this particular subsection to change the Constitution. That's patently false. And we've tried this before, ATSIC and what came before it, we know we have. You don't need to do this. Every school and hospital and even the military and all sorts of government arms have to turn up every 3 years and say, I think that I should still exist. I think some changes need to be made to my regulations. I think I need just a little bit more money or a little bit less, but they never say that. And that's good. So the hospitals and the schools and the police and everyone else has to keep prosecuting They're cause that they should exist, and each government gets to consider it and say, I agree, you should still exist, or sometimes, no, you shouldn't. Hospitals get shut down all the time, right? University used to be free, and then government went, you know what, I don't think it should be free anymore. And that's right. You should keep having to prosecute the claim that you should exist every 3 years if you're an organization, and that's how we work. Saying that it should exist into perpetuity, no, I mean, that's, you can see that bullshit from a mile off. I don't know anyone, clearly people are falling for it, but that's super suspicious. And my real last one, this time I really mean it. I'm not sure people can fix their own problems. I'm not sure it's necessarily true that if you go to a group of people and say, do you have problems? And they say yes. And I say, well, I'll fix them for you. Just tell me what you want. That they can't even tell you. I mean, why do we have personal trainers? It's the simplest thing in the world to lose weight. You consume less calories than you burn, but still everyone needs a personal trainer to tell them how to do it. Why do we have therapists? And this is an extreme example. I'm not saying it's necessarily a fair comparison, but certainly you don't ask a heroin addict what they need. They'll say $1,000. And if you give it to them, it doesn't help them. I don't know that I personally, whatever problems I have in my own life, and I do have a few, I'm not sure that this thing here exactly knows what to do with fixing it. It might well be that I need a different perspective. My wife's, my parents, someone that loves me but isn't me, to be able to tell me what I'm doing wrong. In the olden days, it would be a village priest. These days, it's something more like a doctor. But on a simple, esoteric issue like, I don't know, cancer or something like that, I don't diagnose myself, and it's not up for me to tell me how to treat my cancer either. I don't have it, by the way. I'm just using the example. You go to other people outside. It's not always the case that a group of people or a person can fix their own problem. There seems to be an assumption here that the best placed person to tell them how the extraordinary problems that are out in very remote communities amongst the Indigenous population can be fixed by those same people. I don't know that that necessarily follows. That's enough from me. I do plan on making one more video where I have a sneaky conspiracy theory about that, but it's not a fact, and I don't want to muddy the waters with this. I think I'll make that one tomorrow. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you later. Oh, I'm just going to say, vote however you want to vote. Vote yes if you want. It's great, and there'll be no repercussions. No, we'll all be friends after this, I hope, anyway, at least from my point of view. Bye now.